But what we're going to make sure that we're going to do today, because we're going to be working with some really hot things like the hot glue gun and the hair dryers, don't touch them, because then you get blistered. And I don't want to have to take you to your dad, and you're going to have to be taken care of, okay? And then another thing we're going to do is we don't want to make a mess, so we're just going to make sure that we clean everything up, okay? Alright, so do you like water? Do you like to drink water?
Yeah.
What happens to water when you put it in the freezer?
Freezes.
It freezes, right? So what's the difference when you have water in a cup and an ice cube? What's the difference in the way they feel?
Well, if you freeze it, I'm talking about like freeze the cup.
Yeah, if you, yep.
If you put it in the cup, it would be smooth around because when you pour the water in, it gets its lines.
Yeah.
So if you put it in something else, put it in something and lay it out, it wouldn't be as straight.
Exactly. So it makes different shapes. So if I put water in like a cup that was like this, if I pulled the ice out of it after it was in the freezer, it would be ice like this, right? But if you put it in like an ice cube tray, they're little tiny cubes, right? Now what if I handed you a piece of ice? Okay, so pretend you have a piece of ice in that hand. What does it feel like?
As the regular, it would feel smooth.
It's still smooth, right? What if you threw it at me? Would it hurt? What if you hit me right here?
Maybe a little.
Bam! I think it would hurt.
Yeah.
Don't throw ice at people. Okay. All right. So what happens if I had you hold out your hand, okay, and I poured some water in your hand? Could you hold all the water that I poured in your hand? Why not?
It would spill through, and the sides aren't cupped enough.
Exactly. So what we're going to be talking about a little bit is solids and liquids. Okay? So when you just have like water in your hand, it's a liquid and it would just flow through. But if it's ice, it's a solid. Okay? So what are these crayons right now?
They're solid.
They're solid? Why aren't they liquid? They're not in the cold freezer.
Yeah, but this is wax, and it's something that can dry out like water can get warm, it can dry.
Ah, okay, that's really good. So wax is made of different molecules and atoms, okay? And do you know what a molecule or an atom is?
No.
No? Okay, that's what we're going to talk about. So a molecule is a tiny little thing that it's what everything is made of. So if I have a molecule that is like water, when it's in the water, all the different pieces that make up water. So imagine if do you know what a magnifying glass is? So what happens when you look at something in a magnifying glass?
It looks bigger.
It gets bigger. So imagine we had a super, super magnifying glass and we looked at water. What we would see is we'd see lots of little tiny things moving around. Okay, those are molecules. Okay, and when they're in water, they're moving pretty fast. But when we put them in the freezer, guess what happens? They start to slow down, and then guess what? They almost stop. But they're going really, really slow, and that's what makes it ice. Okay? So the molecules that are in crayons, which you said is made of wax, are different than the molecules in water because these don't have to be in a freezer to be moving slow. They just have to be at the room temperature to make them slow. So what we want to do is, in order to make our art today, we have to figure out a way to make these into liquid. We have to make a way for the molecules to move faster. So how do you think we could do that?
We could make it hotter because sometimes, sweat will dry if you fan.
Okay, true. So if we heat these up, what does that do to the molecules?
It makes them start to go a little bit faster.
Yeah, so they'll start to move.
It.
So then it'll melt, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to spread some of these newspapers over here because these hair dryers are going to help us make these crayons hot. And then we're going to start blowing hot air all over them. And as we do that, they're going to start to melt down like this, okay? And then we're going to make some art out of it because they'll be these long strings, and then we'll flip them over and we'll put some flowers on it. Does that sound good? All right, so that one's gonna be for you, and I'm gonna try one too because I love art. And I'm gonna try and make a rainstorm. Do you think this is good for a rainstorm? Yeah. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so here's some newspaper for you, and here's some for me. Okay, go ahead, here we go.
So how do you turn it?
So just pull it down. Tell me when you think you have enough for a flower. You want me to try and do some more over here? You good? Okay, let's turn them on. All right. Right in the middle. Okay. So I'll just finish mine later. So what happened? What did you do to the solid?
I melted it.
You melted it and it made a liquid. Well, look over here. What does it look like?
It looks like it's
You can
starting-
touch it.
Yeah.
It's getting back to what?
Solid.
A solid. Why?
Because while I was blowing off, it can't stay. They're starting to go slower because this stuff that dries out.
Yep, so it starts to, the molecules start to go slower because the temperature isn't high anymore. And it cools down, and so it becomes a solid. So let's go over and we're going to go take your art over to the table. And I brought a bag of flowers that you can choose to put some stuff on. So go ahead and grab your thing. Okay. So I brought some yellow and some pink flowers. And what we're going to do is you can go ahead and sit down if you want. Use these. You can use as many of these as you want. And we're going to glue them on here. But look at this. How does this glue gun work? Do you see this over here? Touch it.
It's solid.
It's solid. And then what does it come out like?
Hot because it's mixy. It's
Yeah.
hot.
So right in here, there's a thing that warms it up, so it comes out a liquid, right? So,
Hardens back up.
yeah, it's pretty cool, huh? You don't think about it all the time, but we use it a lot, don't we? Things that go from solids to liquids, like a hot glue gun, or ice cubes and things like that. Have you ever got a Slurpee before? Do you like Slurpees?
You can do it. Don't produce this same as water, not like wax.
All right, so let's take these and stick them wherever you want. Where do you think they would look good? There. And when we glue them, we'll make sure that they go flat. Pink ones. All right, that looks really good. So slide it over here next to the glue gun. Just slide. All right, let's start. So when this glue dries, what happens?
The molecules slow down.
Yep, they slow down, and then guess what?
Becomes a solid.
Yep, and then it doesn't move, right? Let's put a little more glue on that one. Here's this one. Wow, that looks really cool. Is this one glued yet?
Good.
Okay. How's it looking? Looking good? All right. So what did you learn today about
Molecules. And
molecules? What did you learn about them?
they can slow down and they can go fast.
So what happens when they go fast?
It keeps going like water.
Mm-hmm.
These won't
Becomes
dry
a
out.
liquid, but when the molecules slow down, then what happens?
It gets colder and turns into a solid. This
Yep.
is
What is that?
solid.
It's a solid.
It's solid, warm, solid. It's kind of like a pattern.
Yep, careful, because that's really hot. Did you burn yourself?
No,
Not too bad. You good?
not too bad. Yep.
Okay. All right, and that's everything.